To begin with, this episode and the upcoming ones will be a deep dive into the topic I introduced last time. So, a big thanks to DocMarker0 for comforting me in the idea that empathy in video games deserved a bit more discussion. And don't forget that you too can share your ideas for games or topics in the YouTube comments, with a message on Twitter or via email. I think it's really cool we can build this series together, so don't hesitate to tell me what you think. And with that said, let's dive in and see how sometimes games find just the right gameplay to convey empathy with the characters and immerse us in their world. As I've mentioned a few times in the WGTU series, one of the particularities of the video game medium is that, contrary to films or books, it requires you to play an active role. You need to interact with the artwork in order to discover more of it and somewhat shape it to your will. For lots of players, this means that you need to feel like you are part of the game's world. Now, some games are just about letting some steam out, but in others, to truly experience it, you should picture yourself alongside the characters, in the scenery, and think as if you were a protagonist in the game. In other words, video games often make their best to gain your engagement and empathy, which in turn mean that those video games have to find the right gameplay to convey their story and ideas smoothly and seamlessly. They should be as natural to interact with as possible in order to not separate you from the fiction. Some types of games, like first-person shooters, naturally plunge you in the action, since you're supposed to be where the camera is. But what's pretty funny is that, in a way, a few technologies aimed specifically at bridging this gap. If you think about the Wii, or more recently the VR headsets, it's clear that those devices were all meant to make it more real, to really sink you into the action. And it does work for some games or apps, especially the sport and rhythm games, but not for all. In particular, I'm always slightly weirded out by the Star Wars games on these platforms. More often than not, you're playing an overpowered Sith or Jedi that can crush half a planet with its bare hands, and you do this by pressing a single button. I mean, I totally get that you can't actually start swinging on the walls in your living room, but still, this makes for a strange anticlimax, and in my experience, you end up both overwhelmed and frustrated with this over-the-top action. Finding the sweet spot is hard, and I don't mean to denigrate these games. They are lots of fun, and sometimes it's just enjoyable to exert all of Vader's wrath for a while. However, I believe that when you manage to properly balance player interaction and in-game consequences, and when you keep the players engaged by cleverly and constantly dragging them in, then you can get real empathy towards your world and your characters. And one of the game franchises I found to do this brilliantly is the Batman Arkham series. The Batman Arkham series is, as of today, a total of 4 games, and the 5th one, by the same creators but about the Suicide Squad, should be released in 2023. They were developed by Rocksteady Studios and are considered by many like the real birth of the Dark Knight on our computer screens. Because up to this point, Batman video games had been of varying quality. The series started in 2009 with Arkham Asylum, and it was instantly loved both by players and critics thanks to its great renewal of mechanics, its flawless depiction of the hero and the universe of the comics, and of course an amazing story. The game is technically impressive, with its convincing graphics, its incredible voice acting, its interactive environments, or its iconic combat system. And it's a real pleasure to go from one wing of the asylum to another and discover yet another great rendition of a villain. But the truth is, in my opinion, the real brilliant feat of the game is that it masterfully mixed all of this in a seamless and dynamic gameplay that continuously pulls you into this mad world. And continuously has you walk in the Bat's boots. Basically, by managing to deliver on so many levels, the game actually has you feel like you are Batman. You empathize with, or strongly reject the people the hero encounters, you relate to Gordon but jump when the Scarecrow's around, In a word, you identify with Batman himself, and overall, you just live it as if you were there. In the whole series, fights are quick and violent, like in the comics. Stealth and infiltration phases are well thought and all about strategy, which really makes you feel like you are the knight. The progression to the story requires you to use your gadgets and to solve enigmas, as if you were yourself the world's greatest detective. The Arkham games also evolved over the years and kept on boosting the gameplay. While Arkham City transposed the series from straight corridors to an open world, Arkham Origins introduced a multiplayer component, and Arkham Knight re-injected the Batmobile as an actual phase of gameplay, to further deepen the power of our hero. All of these are pretty different mechanics, and yet they're perfectly fused together to make a unique gameplay, and more importantly, a unique game. That's why, to me, the Batman Arkham series, in addition to being just a blast to play and replay again, is also a great example of how gameplay can have you empathize with a character. And please tell me in the comments, since the guy already dresses like a bat at night, shouldn't we just agree that the Joker is right and that Batman is one bad day away from full craziness? Next time, we'll keep discussing empathy in video games and see how we can use storytelling and narration to create emotional attachment towards characters. Can you guess which game I'll talk about? In the meantime, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and share it if you did, to subscribe to the channel and to turn on the notifications to not miss the next ones. And of course, if you have any other idea of games that tell us something without us noticing, go ahead and tell us in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the rest of this series.